Hi.
Hi,
Hey, Michelle. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good. You look gorgeous.
So do you. Oh, yeah, this is one of my little India pieces.
Oh,
I know, it's so pretty.
stunning.
I know, I was just like, I need to do something.
Well, I am so excited because you are actually my first guest.
Yes.
So, yeah, should we just dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy
Okay,
to.
amazing.
I'm
Well,
excited for you.
thank you. I'm excited. It's really fun. I've been loving doing it.
So good.
So good. All right. Well, today I am absolutely honored to be joined by Michelle Cassidy, and she is a twin mother, devoted wife, yoga and Pilates teacher, and a land care conservationist. She is the founder and operator of Essence of Living Studio and teacher training courses here on the Gold Coast, Australia. And she's been teaching yoga and Pilates for more than 2 decades, which is amazing. She's devoted her life and yeah, she's devoted her life to supporting her family, her friends, and Forest alike. And to me, she is the absolute guru of yoga and Pilates. She's mastered the business for over 20 years, and Michelle, has been my personal yoga teacher and mentor, really, within the yoga world since I took a teacher training course with you back in 2012, I believe. So, yeah, you continue to inspire me, and yeah. I just love seeing everything that you do, and you inspire me now, as my mother, as a mother and growing a business. So welcome. I'm so
Oh, thanks,
excited.
Sophie. Thanks for having me. I'm so honored and privileged to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes, I'm so excited because you are my first ever guest, and I just wanted to say, thank you, and I'm just so excited to chat with you. So, yeah, if you wanted to share, a little bit more about your journey as far as, business and everything, feel free to go back to the start.
So to my very beginning in starting my business was very natural and organic. When I was 16, I went to my first yoga class with my mum, and there wasn't any yoga studios around back then. And it was just at a local surf club. And it was in Shavasana actually that I fell in love with yoga. I was terrible at the postures, the asanas. I couldn't touch my toes. I'm not naturally a flexible person. I'm athletic, but not flexible. And it was a feeling of Shavasana, that just deep feeling of oneness and heart exploding and love and just connection to something so much bigger than myself, that I knew that feeling was a feeling I wanted to share with others for the rest of my life. So I was very lucky at 16 to be as clear as day what I wanted to do with my life. The problem was I had a limiting belief that I wasn't good enough because, as I mentioned, I wasn't flexible. And I thought to be a yoga teacher, you had to be flexible, you had to, be a certain type. And I learned over time that that couldn't be further from the truth. And more important than your physicality is the quality of your heart and how much you love people and how much you care about people. And it's not about you doing a performance and about how good you are, but rather how good you make other people feel. And that's really been my journey since then, is just making other people feel connected to themselves, to something bigger, and to their community. I love community. I love people. I love serving. And yeah, just feel very honored and privileged that my whole life has conspired for me to follow this path. So it's it's been work, but at the same time, it's been a joy. So it's beautiful. I'm paddling with the current, I could say.
I love that. Yeah, I think when you are truly in alignment with your purpose, like it doesn't feel like work, it just brings you so much joy um and that really does shine. Like you are always, I can see how much you inspire and uplift the community and with everything that you do. So I remember, I think I was doing my Pilates teacher training with you, and you were heavily pregnant with your twins. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how does she do it? Like, she's running this teacher training course. She's got this, powerhouse studio here on the coast. And then stepping into motherhood with twins. So, how did you do it all?
I think my one of my greatest skills is the ability to trust others and to ask for help. I'm not scared to ask for help and to ask for support. And I'm not someone who micromanages. I actually believe that people are usually better than me at most things. And so I've always had a great team around me of really incredible women primarily that have supported me. And I love learning from women, and I love women in general. And I think that's why I've been able to do so much, is because I've just had a great team. I've had a great support system, and I've not had the ego to control or think I know better. I think I'm really comfortable in being a humble learner and listening and not being scared to ask for help. So I think that's probably a great strength that I have, is
Mhm.
that ability to be humble and ask for help when I need it.
Yeah, I think that's so important too, that some people, myself included, can sometimes shy away from support, like, thinking that, we have to do it all, but it is important to, yeah, lean into those, and work off other people's strengths and things like that to really to blossom, essentially. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I just see so everybody's magnificence and their strengths. I'm very good at seeing people's strengths, and I'm just, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. Can you help me? And you can just get so much further faster, not being scared to ask for help, and being okay with not being okay, and letting people see that. Being vulnerable, I think, is really cool. And I've always been able to share my truth. I've never had a facade or pretended that I'm perfect or I have it all figured out. I think being vulnerable and being open actually opens the door for others to actually say, hey, I can help, or actually I know how to do that. And then the willingness to learn and be open to receive that. So I think that's really important.
I love that. And it's so, relatable too, because I think, even though I say, you are my guru, and to many you probably are, but also, when you share your really vulnerable posts and things like that and share your story with us, it's like, okay, it's, life isn't perfect and rainbows and sunshine all the time, but it's about, yeah, just kind of knowing that that's okay, and yeah, and having that support system. So,
And it's natural. I mean, like, we just have to look at nature, and we look at the four seasons. And, if it was sunny all the time, it would be a desert. And
yes.
so we just ebb and flow with nature. And then when we wake up one day and we're not feeling our brightest self, it's not like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's like, oh, it's okay. It's a cloudy day today. That's normal. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm like all over the place. Oh, that's okay. It's a windy day today. That's normal. We don't look outside when it's windy and go, oh, there's something wrong. There's wind, or, oh my gosh, it's broken. There's clouds. We need to fix it. Like, it's just natural. And I think the more you lean into nature and to our natural environment and learn from nature, that you realize that there is no such thing as perfect sunshine, and the rain brings rainbows. And I mean, that's as cliche as that sounds, but that's when the frogs come out, and that's when all, and you get all these other beautiful things with the different emotions and feelings that we experience, especially as women in our cycles. We definitely, have all the colors of the rainbow in our experience. And
Yes.
I think that's what makes us so beautiful.
Yes. 100%. I love that. You've always been so good at yes, like making things make sense, like in today's world sort of thing. So I've always appreciated that. So I'd love to know what personal practices have helped you, to feel supported and things like that within, motherhood, business. I'm sure, because meditation and all that sort of thing. But yeah, is there anything that is specific to you?
That's a really great question because, I was contemplating this. I love to contemplate and to reflect. And I was thinking, because I've been practicing now consistently for 27 years. So that's a long time. And, how I used to show up for my practice is very different to how I show up now. And when I decided a year and a half ago to close my studio, it was, it was a big deal after 19 years, and a big commitment, though I still teach. Um, it was like I was in the business of yoga, and I was doing all the practices, and I was showing up every day, and the tick list of the to-dos of your daily meditation, pranayama, asana, like all of the things. But the interesting thing I found now, that since I've got more space and time in my life, even though I'm still a super dedicated mother, and got a lot going on there, it's like I can be yoga more now
Yeah.
than do yoga. And the interesting thing, since I've been living in the forest now for 8 years, like, so on big land and very, very intimate with nature. And there's something about just being other than doing
Mm-hmm.
so profound, that what supports me now is actually just nothing to do, and actually making sure I have space
Mm-hmm.
just to sit under a tree without having to do a pranayama technique or a type of meditation or listen. Like, it's more like I just have to sit and be.
Yeah.
And I can watch the water run through the creek for however long I want, with no time agenda, it's just more of a being. And I found that at this stage of my evolution has been so powerful, of not another to-do list or another, it's more just the beingness. Ooh, there's my puppy.
Hello, Doug.
That's been really helpful for me. So that's been the most supportive thing for me right now, is escaping to the forest
Yeah.
and just being in nature. I find that incredibly grounding, easy, and free. It's just wonderful.
And I think that's how we all want to feel, right? Like who wants to feel bogged down by a to-do list and, stressed out about having to do certain things and be somewhere when you can just give yourself that permission that it's okay that you don't have to be doing and that you can just be, and how freeing that is. Yeah, it's
And
absolutely.
that can be difficult as well, like, to actually just be with oneself, especially if we have, a monkey mind and lots of potential trauma or whatever is going on. And that's why I've started doing forest bathing now and guiding people on sensory experiences in nature to help them decompress and give them an open invitation to experience nature in a new way, but it's free and open. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting. I like it. It's like I can't help but just be spacious all of the moment because of what it feels like to be really open and free. And I think it's really in the non-doing. That's all I can say. It's
Yeah.
just coming to that place. And as a mother, it's really important to carve out that time for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really important. And it's hard because they're like, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And one thing I just love to add that was a big takeaway for me was when I would get stressed or anxious or like, fully turbocharged, it was because I was doing too much. And I realized that my daily calendar was too full and I needed to take some things out, but we've, constantly adding and adding and adding and adding. And it's like, well, that's why I'm so stressed, is because I'm too stretched.
Yeah.
And so it's like, actually, I have to be okay with doing less because that's the only way and hence why I shut down the studio, is because I wanted to be yoga,
Yeah.
not do yoga,
Yeah.
and have more space and time to be like, to give back to the forest, to do conservation, to slow down and actually live the practice. And I think that's, yeah, the ability to say no is a big skill too.
100%. That's still something I'm working on, because yeah, growing a business, you can get caught up in the doing and you've as a mom, you've got all these, commitments with the family and then like yeah, everyone's pulling at you, so to speak, like and yeah, it can be tricky, but it really is an art of letting go and trusting that you will be supported in that, slowing down. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think now because I don't have a big business anymore and I don't have a big team anymore, and I'm actually doing everything, like most small business owners, but it's learning what is the biggest needle mover, like what
Mhm.
actually really matters, because so much of what we do doesn't actually make an impact.
Yeah.
And so it's like, actually, what is most important for me to do in my business? What's going to give me the greatest return? Because as we know, it's like 20% is what gives us the 80% return. So
Mhm.
just figuring out and focusing on that 20% that's actually really, really important. And don't worry about the rest.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm really good at, is just zooming in and figuring that out and just focusing on that. And then the rest, it's just like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I love that because like busyness is not business, right? Like all that stuff that's just keeping you busy, like that's not the priority. Just finding, like you said, like what is going to move the needle forward and just focus on that. I love
Yeah.
that.
And I find as a mum, you actually get good at that.
Mm,
You have to.
yeah.
Prior to being a mum, I thought I was busy, and I kind of was, but now then you have twins and it just goes like through the roof.
Next level.
Um, yeah, like really, but then it's learning to prioritize. And then another important thing I've come to realize within myself is that I can't be everything at once.
Mhm.
And so I've committed to this chapter of my life for me right now, is my number one focus is family.
Mhm.
And so for the next 10, 11 years, whilst my kids go through school, I mean, they're going into year 3 this year, I am 100% family first. And then if I decide, circle back around. And if I wish or choose to be an entrepreneur and businesswoman, then I'll really go for that then. But I struggle to do both exceptionally.
Yeah.
And I'm really honest with that. I can't be the level of mother I want to be and the level of businesswoman I know I'm capable of being. I can't be them both.
Hmm.
And I'm really clear on that. Like I do, because I have very high standards and expectations. And so I chose family first now.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with not having a turbo massive business and just ticking along and making a difference and living from the heart. And that's enough for me right now.
Yeah.
That's and I can pick it up later if I choose. But I think it's important to get your priorities right and not try to be everything because it's just too overwhelming. It's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my opinion anyway.
Yeah. No, I completely appreciate that because um I think so many of us feel that, that we want to be the best or do our best at being a mom. And then, it's difficult to do them both really well. It's yeah,
It's not possible.
much. Yeah.
It's like it is impossible. If you want to be a professional athlete or any profession at the highest level, it takes 100% focus and dedication
Mhm.
to be your best. So you can be mediocre at both. Like if we get really honest
Yeah.
and burnt out, or you
Hmm.
could be exceptional at one and being okay with not being your best version over on this side. And that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'm going to be 10 out of 10 mum right now. And I'm going to be like the duck's nuts of the mum,
Yeah.
and drive them everywhere and do the quality breakfast and lunch and dinner and do all the things. And my business will be the best it can be with what I have left.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm not comparing to anyone. And I think that's what a lot of people do is they compare or compete and think, oh, look what they're doing and look what they're doing. And it's like, we all have our own capacity. And I think we just have to work to our own capacity and and know where that's at and get really honest with ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. I've always, like I said, I've love and admire how you can turn, old philosophy, into relevant teachings for today. And I'd love to know what's been your biggest lesson so far.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
big question.
far out. Gosh, I probably would need time to contemplate that further, but I think one of my biggest lessons has been trust and faith. Um, when I was younger, I was grasping and striving, and which was useful at the time. But now there's something really beautiful about just sitting and trusting. And there's a philosophy about the monkey and the kitten, and both are in search of the divine or God or Mother Earth or universal energy or whatever you want to call it. And when the little baby monkey loses its mother, what it does, it swings from branch to branch and it's scouring the jungle, trying to find and screaming and like making a big chaos. And yet the little kitten just doesn't move. It sits still and it just quietly calls for, and then both reach the mother, the divine, God, but they take two different paths. And I
Mhm.
think my younger self was the monkey, and I was striving and reaching and grasping and trying to do all of the things. And as I've gotten older and wiser, I realized that the kitten has it. well and truly good, and that it's already all done. And that if we just trust, if we're living in alignment and living with our heart, that we can paddle with the current instead of against it. And we're going to end up exactly where we're meant to be anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The ultimate thing I found is to always live from the heart under every circumstance, in every situation, in every conversation, in every choice and action. It's got to come from here.
Yeah.
And I think I've always been able to feel that really, really deeply. And I think when this feels good, everything else falls into line. And I think as soon as you're in your head, like as Tony Robbins would say, we're dead. And it's just to be in the heart and to trust. Because the monkey has fear and the kitten has trust. And I think that's a really beautiful place to reside, is just trusting and living from that heart place, because it can be hard at times because the head starts to question and it gets confused and it's delusional. So that's why we always have to, review our thoughts and question our thoughts. Don't ever trust your mind. That's the biggest one. Like, don't ever trust your thoughts because they're so often confused and clouded and colored.
Yeah.
Question all of your thoughts. Yeah, I find that's been really helpful too.
And just trust your heart.
Yeah, but be smart.
Yeah.
So there's like because sometimes we can be delusional with the feelings of the heart too. Because that sometimes it's a desire that's coming up that's actually not a purity. And so it's knowing the difference between what's a pure heart feeling and what's a desire, temptation that we're fulfilling. And once again, it comes back to like deep honesty with oneself. Because we can, I had a teacher once used to say to me, and she goes, you can, what was it? You can make excuses for everything in your life. And she said, and before you know it, you'll excuse yourself out of like everything that's good, because you're like, oh, I don't do this, oh, because of this. And you can make an excuse for you can justify everything. You jump on the internet and someone will support your way of thinking no matter what. Do you know what I mean? And so then we start not being honest with ourselves, and then we start believing our own lies. And so we've got to have that tough love for ourselves, and that the just inner discrimination, the ability to see the real from the unreal is so important. And that takes self-awareness, and that takes quiet time. And I'm not saying you have to sit there and meditate, but you have to be like, you can't see the bottom of the lake if it's busy. You have to let it settle, and it has to be still, and then you can see to the depths. And so stillness can look different for everyone. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a perfect sitting meditation position. Stillness might be sitting at the beach and watching the waves, or sitting at the creek, or under a tree, or stillness could be just a really slow walk with no agenda, not a hike, but just like a meander down a path kind of thing, without a podcast, without music going. It's more just like being with oneself. And I've found to be true that walking with oneself, not like on a time, not just walking things out, it's like therapy for the mind. I find if you're not a sitter and you find it difficult to meditate, just a beautiful morning walk or an afternoon walk, and just walk it out. It's like therapy, and you'll get a lot of clarity. A lot of creativity comes too, through the fresh air, out in nature. That's another really great practice, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I could seriously sit here and listen to you just talk all day. Um, so I don't know if you remember, and I could really go down a rabbit hole with this one, but during one of your yoga talks, a few years back now, it was in the new studio. But you shared something, it was like a bow and arrow analogy that even, when bad things happen or when it gets hard, like some arrows are bent, but you just keep aiming until you get a straight one. And I've just always loved that. I just thought that was so powerful. And like for me, last year was very much like a bow and arrow season for me, where like it really emphasized that there's moments where, we can pull back and you have to be pulled back sometimes and stretched in order to shoot with like precision and strength. Um, and, when you decided to close the doors of the studio, initially, like I was so shocked and, you know, I think a lot of people were, quite devastated. But now I really understand, that you had to kind of pull back and deconstruct in the way that you were, doing business so that you could return a way of doing business that honors your every part of life, and it seems really now that built you've built your business around your life and not, the other way around and, having to conform around your business. So I'd love to know, in what ways have you, embraced your bow and arrow season while staying focused and, in alignment with your vision?
Mm. Yeah, it was interesting. I had this deep feeling inside for not a couple of years, but probably like a year, year and a half. And I just had this feeling that there was a big change coming. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. And I was just like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel this huge shift coming. And I'd been living in the forest at that time for 6 years. And this an incredible auntie, a First Nations woman, said that the land that you live on will change you on a cellular level. And within 7 years of living in a particular place, you become the energetic of that place. And I had been living on the lands in the forest on that retreat, on that nature reserve. And it was so unbelievable how much I just started to have this deep shift inside. And I was just changing and changing on the inside without anything. I was like the trees were wrapping their arms around their roots around me and making me, I don't know, they were transforming me with no words. And I just didn't know what I was meant to be doing, but I knew there was a big shift coming. And it was on the flower full moon. I just had this massive wake up in the middle of the night. And it was like, you have to close the studio. It
Wow.
was just like an electricity thing came through. And it's like, now's the time. And I hadn't told anyone, nobody, like, and I remember telling my husband, he's like, what do you mean? You just, because I bought the commercial building, I just paid it off. So I was now like, I had no mortgage on it, so I could do really well. And it was just like, no, now is the time. And I think because I was traveling from the forest into like Mermaid Beach, into like the busyness of sort of city life, it kept jarring me.
Yeah.
Every time I would drive in there, it was jarring because like all the concrete, even though I grew up in Mermaid Beach and the ocean, it just felt so unnatural. And I was so used to being with the trees that it just didn't, the energetic just didn't sit anymore for me. Because trust, once you live in the forest, it's
Yeah.
very hard. And it was just very jarring. And so I remember telling my amazing studio manager, Nicola, I'm going to close. She's like, what? I said, we're closing in 5 weeks. She's like, what? And
Oh,
she could, like, she was just like, okay. And it was just like I'm very decisive and I follow through. It's just like, not, I don't, I'm very clear. And so I just made that big shift and change. And it was hard. There's a lot of tears for myself and for students. And some were angry at me, saying, why are you doing this? It's not fair for the community. Like, you've got such an incredible business. You could just walk away completely. But there was still the weight that I would have to carry of that. And now, a year and a half later, I am so light. I feel like a proper forest fairy. I've got wings on my back and I can just float around so much lighter. And, I still facilitate yoga and Pilates classes for the community, and those community classes for free or for like $8. And it's
yeah.
every Friday I have over 100 people in my class. Like, how good's that? And it's beautiful. And so I'm still having a huge impact and still have a huge community, but there's just no weight or pressure. It's just and all the extra time and energy I was putting into running the business is now I'm actually doing land conservation, and I'm working with the Queensland government. I've got a big grant, and now I'm doing regen and just weeding and planting and preserving for our natural fauna. And so still I'm doing lots of work, but I'm doing work for the forest, and I love it. Like, every day I'm in the forest and I'm just knee deep in the dirt, pulling out weeds, and I just couldn't be happier. I'm just and it's hard yakka. Like, it's, you think doing yoga and Pilates it's actually really hard being in the forest and weeding all day and cutting out all the non-native species, allowing the endemic species to come through. But I remember I first started doing that on my old land, and I felt like this is yoga, that selfless service of giving to the forest. And the forest doesn't say, oh, thank you, that was an amazing class. Oh my God, you're an amazing teacher. The forest doesn't say that. It doesn't fuel your ego, doesn't tell you how wonderful you are. But then when you walk back like a month later, 2 months later, and you see the little seedlings popping through of the native plants, and you're just like, oh, hi, friends. You've
Yes.
got light now. You've got space to breathe now. You can grow. And then, you're just making a real difference on the land. And I just love that. That just lights me up so much. And so, when you say the bow and arrows, like, there's always an element of action. So when you're retracting, there's still action. And when you're letting go, like, the letting go is action still. And so whatever choices we're making, there's always some sort of action. And I think, once again, as I said earlier, is just like making sure that all of our actions come from our heart, even if they're hard. And even if they're going to hurt other people, you have to stay true to yourself, because other things will blossom later because of that.
Mm-hmm.
All my clients, I would say, well, if you can't come to my studio, we'll come to my community classes. Like, I'm still serving here, maybe not as much or as often. And so I can, and my studio space is still a yoga, Rituals now
Yeah.
leasing
Yeah.
my studio off me, and they're doing a great job, those girls, still servicing the community through that studio space. But now I get to be in the forest, and I've had that transition into, actually making selfless service that really nourishes my soul, and forest bathing and taking people into nature and having a sensory experience with the land. And so that transition has felt so beautiful. Like, but if I'm honest, I didn't know what it was going to be at first. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to unfold. And, I had plans to build a big training academy on my old land. And, it took me 2 years and a lot of big investment to get a training facility approved out in Tallabudget Valley. And then it was too expensive to build. It went up 3 times. So it was $1 million initially, and it went up to 3.3 million. just to construct. And I just went, no, thanks. I don't want that stress and that pressure. And so we went back to the drawing board to find a new property in the trees. And now I live in the most incredible place I've ever been in my life. Like every day I pinch myself. I take my dogs for a little walk in the morning and there'll be platypus in the creek and there's echidnas and fireflies and glowworms and you name it. It's all here in this forest. And so I don't know, it's just trusting the unknown
Mhm.
and just trusting your truth, even though the answer might not be in front of you. You know that there's there's something out there for you, and it's not what you're doing now, but there's something coming. And that takes a big leap of faith,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, because so often we need to know what's next before we leap.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was next. So that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
But I just listened to my heart and trusted that. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what it is, but I'm just doing it.
I love that. And
Mhm.
so, what's next for you now?
Actually, just doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I am so content. I am so at peace. I have no goals. I have no dreams. I'm living the dream. I am so happy just supporting my family and running my trainings here in the forest, doing my regen work, and just being more and doing less and teaching my community classes, for low cost or no cost. And I'm really happy just exactly where I am.
Yeah.
And I just love that I don't need to add anything. I don't feel like I need to subtract anything. I am so full, so full.
Love that.
Mm.
I love that.
The truth is, I've never been here before.
Mm. Yeah.
Like that absolute fullness. And I've really felt it now for 6 to 8 months. It's just like I'm so happy that I want for nothing. Like I'm like, I just want to keep giving and serving it to the capacity that feels nourishing for me. So it's not depleting. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
But still family first. It's like how just keep being the best mom I can and
I
support
love
the
that.
support the forest and my you know students, and that's it. I'm good.
So good. And how can people find you as far as taking your forest walks or teacher trainings or anything like that?
Oh, so I'm very blessed. The Gold Coast City Council has actually sponsored all of my forest bathing offerings that I'm doing. I only do one a month because that's as much as I can handle because there's just my life is full and I don't want to overdo it. So I go all over the Gold Coast actually, from the botanical gardens to Talabudra to Currumbin, and it's only $5 because the council subsidizes it. So if you can jump on my website, essenceofliving.com.au, all my forest bathing offerings are there, which is really nice. I do school holiday programs. They're always really popular with the kids. Channel 10 came and did a story last week on us, which was really fun. And then teacher training, I'm just running just small little groups from my home, which I really love. And it's really intimate. And that's all on my website as well for yoga, Pilates, yin, all of the things. I'm bringing Thai massage back, which is really
Ooh,
nice. Yeah, super exciting. So I'll be offering Thai massage teacher training again this year. But it's typically just done during school term when the kids are at school.
yeah.
And then there'll be a couple of weekend ones later in the year. But yeah, just feeling good, feeling full. And yeah, I love sharing from this place of fullness.
Yes. Well, you're almost like overflowing. Yeah.
It feels it.
Yeah. So good. So the name of the podcast is You Unlocked. And I have one last question for you. And that is, what does your unlocked self look like to you, Michelle?
She's standing right in front of you now.
Oh,
She's right here.
love it.
Yeah. Heart full,
Heart
mind open. Yeah. And full of life, full of energy.
beautiful. Thank you so much again for chatting with me and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you. I've loved this. I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. This
Thank
is
you.
such a gift to give to people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your absolute wisdom and insights and everything. I always love chatting with you.
We need to catch up.
We do. We will.
Absolutely.
All
Oh,
right.
thanks. We love you so
Bye,
much.
Michelle. Love you.
See you soon.
See ya.